Hello everyone, my name is Shwang Joshi and I'm co-founder of Law Community. Today, I welcome you all on Lawyer Speaks. And in this session, we have invited a very special guest, Ms. Pallavi Mahajan, who is a lawyer and a gender consultant working for economic independence and social visibility of genders. Ma'am is also a Chiefney scholar and diversity and inclusion strategist. We welcome ma'am on our show to know more about her journey through this interaction. So, ma'am, welcome to Law Community. So, I will be asking you quick questions now. So, my first question is, who has been your role model? Who was your inspiration when you started doing law?
Honestly, going hindsight and thinking about it, I do not know if there was a one single person who prompted me to join the profession. I think it was a profession on its own. It was a legacy of being a lawyer that really inspired me to join the profession, because being a lawyer comes with the coveted responsibility of making sure that the provision of the constitution, the legislation, the statutes are upheld. And that was a propelling factor for me. So throughout my journey, be it be the lawyers appearing in small district courts of very small cities in India, or to the stalwart lawyers that appear in the apex court, each of their journey and specifically their determination to make sure that justice, liberty, and equality, as enshrined in our constitution, is upheld was an inspiration for me. But if you personally ask me if there was this one person that I have fangirled since my law school days, it would definitely be Michelle Obama. For the very prime reason that coming as a colored woman in a democracy like the United States of America, which is a white supremacist democracy, where even today, be it in India or in the US, law is legal industry as such is a male-dominated industry. And back in time, when Michelle Obama took the force forward to become a lawyer, it was even more male-dominated. And then when she joined the profession, she did not follow the mob to take up the options that looked good on the CV. She did what was right for her. So that was a lot of inspiration for me. And then when she trajected from being a lawyer who would brief and sit in the corporate in the corporate boardrooms, to take up the real nexus of being a lawyer, and that is to make sure that there is dissemination of information to the ground. That really inspired me. So I think she would be that one figure. But overall, I think it's just the glory of being a lawyer in a country like India, where I personally believe that the 5 principles of a preamble and can only be upheld if we have a strong legal system in place. And to be one of them was a privilege and an honor.
Why did you shift from corporate world to gender equality law?
Yes, that's a question I think that has been asked to me innumerable times. I think that in the last 3 years, that is one question that has time and again been asked to me. So for that, I will take you back to 2015. I had in 2015 just recently received my first leadership position in the profession. That is when I was escalated to the senior associate position in my then firm. And that is when I came face to face with the underrepresentation of women in the legal industry. If you just look at the data now, out of a 34 sitting bench at the Supreme Court, there are just 3 women, which is not even close to 8%. And similarly, if you look at leadership positions in India, in the law firms, we wouldn't have more than 10 to 15% of the leadership positions occupied by women. And that really intrigued me, and also kind of put me at lost ends as to why do we not have women representation, coming from the fact that the number of women, girls who study at law schools is far ahead than that of boys. So why are women not joining the leadership positions in the legal industry? And that is when I took, before my management of the then law firm, a proposal called the Gender Diversity Project, by the virtue of which we could look at policies, recommendations, through which women at leadership position in the legal industry could be improved. So I was then, and the funny bit is that when I was speaking to the management also, it was an all-male body. So that really, strengthened my briefing even more, my submission even more. And after 6 months, for 6 months rather, I was really assisted by this team of 3 juniors who were working with me on the gender diversity project. And we did very expansive research. We spoke to diversity and inclusion strategists. We read the diversity policy of global law firms. And after 6 months, we submitted a 24-pointer recommendation to my law firm. And in 85% of these recommendations were obviously implemented, which included like creche facility or flexi hours or, mentorship projects, etc. And in 2 years of these policies being implemented, we had a 24% increase in the leadership position of women in my firm. And this project was quoted in the Rainmaker's study of leadership position in the legal industry in India, and was also ratified by 10 plus law firms in India. And I think this particular gender diversity was my catalyst of moving towards gender advocacy. And now coming as to why I made the big move. So for 5 years, I worked in corporate law, basically corporate litigation and arbitration. And though it added a lot of value to my understanding of law, policy, and society, but throughout, Shivansh, I felt a little dissatisfied with what I was doing. I mean, I am not dissing the fact that the other people joined the corporate law trajectory of being a lawyer, but I personally was not really happy. And when the gender diversity project happened, I realized that my happiness lies in gender advocacy. So in 2017, I made the big move towards gender advocacy. And life has been blissful after that. I mean, I've got support of a lot of forces. I have a very conducive support system. And I've just been very fortunate that whatever gave me core happiness in being a lawyer just came my way.
So, ma'am, workplace bullying is very common these days. How, according to you, we can tackle that? Because not everybody is strong enough to, to keep it and to take it. So, what can we do in that?
That's a very interesting question, actually. And to elaborate on your bully, I would like to make sure that it is inclusive of not just sexual or physical bullying, but also emotional bullying or cultural bullying, or even social status and economical status bullying. So there are 2-3 things that first every employee needs to understand is that they need to know the policies and they need to know their rights. Most of the times I felt that specifically when we talk about discrimination at the workplace, the employees are not aware about their rights. So if you're not aware, there is no point blaming the law, because the law is available at your disposition. It is available at your disposal for you to learn and understand where your rights are. So for that, it is very important for the employees to first read the anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies that is prevalent at that particular workplace. Discuss with the HR as to how the ones who are the offenders in this process are prosecuted and what are the charges that are levied at the offenders. Second, read POSH, Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Policy. I personally believe that it is one of the most progressive legislation in the last 1 decade that India has floated, even as compared to the other global North democracies. For a simple matter of fact, I mean, we obviously are in a world which is now recognizes work from home. We are in a post-COVID world. POSH even takes into consideration remote working, which was before COVID. It also takes into consideration, say, if a courier boy comes to my workplace and tries to make sexual lurid remarks at me or tries to make a sexual innuendo at me, even then that person who is not an employee of the organization can be prosecuted. And I can move the court of law under POSH. So know these. And the third is, you know the law. But as you mentioned, not everybody is feisty enough to take up law, and that is absolutely fine. Nobody is holding guns on you to make sure कि नहीं करना ही करना है. For that, it is important that you have a support system. Either support system in the organization, or there is knowledge of support system outside the organization, be it in the form of establishment or commissions or other NGOs that work at employee benefits. So if these things are taken into consideration, then I think workplace bullying can be tackled, and to understand that nothing, specifically when I talk about gender-based discrimination, nothing is more important than our respect and dignity. And no matter what gender we come from, no matter what sexual orientation we come from, every person is capable of and has the right towards dignity and respect. To really imbibe this particular right of dignity and respect.
So, ma'am, have you ever come across a situation in your life where you felt discriminated because of your gender? And if you yes, then how did you dealt with it?
I'm sure there is not one situation. I think in a country like India, where women are obviously a gender minority, every woman on daily basis comes across a scenario or a situation where she feels gender discriminated or feels that she's being excluded as far as opportunities are concerned. So, from a very small fact, and sometimes actually going back to the question, sometimes this conditioning is so unconscious because we start believing that ye to hota hi hai, it is but natural, that you don't even object to it. There is a concept in feminist theory called the bargain of patriarchy, which says that because patriarchy has been such a omnipresent philosophy in India as far as and also in the world, that we are okay with sexism, that we are okay with gender discrimination. So if I can give you very small, small instances that when I move out, when I don't move out, I am always judging it. Similarly, when I remember this one incident when I was escalated to the senior associate position for the first time and I was in a leadership position and there were definitely male associates that I had to manage, I very unconsciously made a shift in my head. That is my leadership a little more dominating for them, or would they object to my leadership as a female leader? Without realizing that leadership doesn't have a gender. Leadership is gender neutral. And for me to either become a little more conscious of my leadership meant that either I was becoming a little too dominant or submissive. So that came very unconsciously to me. But then I checked myself. Similarly, I remember when I was in my first job, in my first work, I was working on a merger and acquisition of a top FMCG organization in India, and which required that there would be a lot of briefings and there would be late hour workings. And there were 2-3 instances where I was not involved in a lot of briefings because that meant that, how will she commute, or is mobility a factor? But because I think I have always been very fascinated of being a lawyer, and I absolutely love my career profession, that I vocalize it to my then manager that, I will manage, but include me in briefing. So there have been a number of instances, but I think I have been very fortunate that my support system has been very strong. And I'm not going to shy away from speaking that I have also been very vocally very vocal about my rights, about my position as far as my gender is concerned. So I'm not really lapsed on an opportunity just because I'm a girl coming from a democracy like India.
So, ma'am, you have been active in legal writing. Would you like to share some tips about the legal research and writing for the legal professionals?
Absolutely. And rather, I personally believe that though moot courts are of intense importance, but writing research papers, writing articles, or working really strongly on a dissertation is very, very pertinent as far as 5 years of law school is concerned. And even afterwards, I mean, learning in law never ends. And that is why it's such a dynamic career, that you're always learning. So if I could share 4-5 tips with you as to how to write a good research paper, first is research. Before writing the paper, it is extremely important to make sure that be physical books or online material available, there is intense research done for at least a month over a particular subject. Make sure that there are notes prepared and every critical idea is deliberated and not just nudged under the carpet believing कि इसके ऊपर तो already research हो गई है, then what is the new that I am adding? You never know what is the new that you are adding. So research very well before you write anything. Also, it is an added responsibility for a lawyer to research everything very well and to support everything by an evidentiary support. Why? Because people are looking up to us. They look at the words spoken by the lawyer and words written by a lawyer as a gospel's truth. So if we do not make that kind of a stature right from the beginning, then in the courts, it's going to be very difficult for us to stand by whatever we are saying. So first is research. Second is use of the right language. And that is why, you find so many caveats when you are looking at statutes. There is always a caveat to a particular legislation. Why? Because everything is made pin drop clear. There is no scope for interpretation, or for interpretation which is beyond that what has been stated in the statute. So make sure that every statement is backed by a lot of reasoning, and these are not open-ended statements. The third is be open to criticism, which I feel that most lawyers are, because it is a career which is very dynamic. It is a career which requires a lot of rebuttal. But even then, as law students, never be arrogant of where you have reached and what conclusions you have drawn in your particular article. When you go to your sponsor, your mentor, or even a co-author, and they have maybe contravening views to yours, or be open to that kind of a deliberation and banter. And the fourth is usage of the right kind of expression. So make sure that whenever there is a flow in the article, it is always that paragraph 1 is related to paragraph 2. Don't create a lot of stuff. Don't add a lot of glamorous language, or don't start adding Latin words to a particular article just because it seems fancy. It has to suit the purpose, and it has to suit the audience. So say if you're writing for a research purpose for a journal, that obviously is going to be very different from, say, an article being written for the general public in the newspaper. So understand your audience and understand the flow of language. So I think these are the 4 important views that anybody should keep in mind, according to me, when they write their research papers or articles.
So, ma'am, recently you have received 2 scholarships. One is the Sussex India Scholarship, and the other one is Chevening Scholarship. Can you tell us about it, and how can law students can pursue them?
Thank you for that question. So first I'll go to the Sussex India Scholarship, because Chevening would require a lot of talking. So I would go to Sussex India. The Sussex India is an excellent scholarship that is primarily based on your academic CV. And for that, all I can tell the law students is that I'm sure most of the people who have now stepped into the profession would tell you that marks are okay. I mean, they are not the make it and break it part of your career. But I would differ a little bit, is because our degree is one of the longest degrees in India. It's a 5 years long degree. It is 3 years also, but let's just focus on 5 years right now. Therefore, make sure that one has performed in the law school to the best of their capability. Do not undermine law exams just because extracurricular activities are available, or it seems like a long degree, a long law degree. कि first year में नहीं हुआ तो second year में तो हो जाएगा. अगर first 3 years में नहीं होगा तो last year में score कर लेंगे. It really doesn't add up like that. Your marks are crucial, and not crucial just because they look nice on your CV. It's also crucial because in most of the scholarships, a first class is a mandate. You'll not be able to apply to most of the scholarship if you do not have a first class in your cumulative CGPA. Now, coming to Sussex India, as I mentioned, that it was completely a merit-based scholarship, and it required minimum 2 years of work experience. Because I'm going to study at Institute of Development Studies, I'll be pursuing my master's in gender and development. So my eligibility was obviously that I qualified for the institute. But it meant that it also took into consideration my marks in law school, what were my extracurricular activities, and my SOP. So for writing your SOP, no matter how many years of your work experience you have, there has to be an umbrella story that encapsulates your entire journey in law school as well as after the law school. So there has to be one umbrella, that if you're, say, interested in property rights, what subject did you take the right electives back in law school? Did you, while you were interning, under a lawyer who had property matters? Similarly, were you able to write research papers which are referring towards property rights, the prevalent property laws in the country or ancestral laws in the country? So there has to be an overlining umbrella. Second, there has to be work on pro bono. We cannot negate the pro bono work for any kind of excellent scholarship that is specifically available for US or for the UK. And the third is to make sure that all your documents are in place right from the day one. And you do not negate the use of those, that you do not negate that there is a time frame attached to the documents. So now coming to the Chevening Scholarship, and Chevening opens its doors to the new scholars in about 10 days. September 5th is when the applications for the 2021-2022 cohort opens. So it's a very good time to start discussing about Chevening, specifically when there might be your viewers who might be inclined towards applying for Chevening. So Chevening, other than taking into consideration academic merit, also is more about fostering leaders from a particular profession. So Chevening is a year-long process. It is not a process that ends in 2-3 months. And there are various stages to Chevening. Say the first stage is the application stage. The second stage, if you qualify from the application, is the interview stage, and then is where your final award is awarded. So Chevening is not just a scholarship that is fully funded. Obviously, that is one of the very crucial benefits of Chevening. But it is also a very coveted British award that is given to about 1,500 scholars from across the globe when there are 60,000 applications that come from 160 different nationalities. Chevening also opens doors to diverse networking opportunities from across the globe. So there are industrial partners, there are academic partners, there are also sponsors that are attached with Chevening, and there are possibilities that one could form very strong relationships with very strong industry supporters from across the globe. And the third and the most important aspect of Chevening is the diversity that it has. As I just mentioned, it has scholars coming from 160 different nationalities. And I personally believe that, I don't know about other scholarships, but I personally think that to get an opportunity to be able to have a teet-to-teet with 160 different nationalities is a fortune like no other. And that is where the coveted nature of Chevening lies. Now, just to brief you, because we also have paucity of time right now, that how is the Chevening process? Chevening process requires a lot of introspection, because the Chevening application itself has 4 essays of 500 words each. First on leadership, second networking, third study plan, and the fourth is career, as to your long-term, short-term, and medium-term career goals. And each of these essays, as I mentioned, are just 500 words. But where the trick of the trade lies is that Chevening doesn't ask you for your CV. So in these 500 words each, you have to encapsulate your entire journey of studying, of undergraduation, or of work experience. Other than making sure that these 500 words are extremely conducive and comprehensive, it is also important to understand that there is an eligibility criteria. About 10% of the applications are just rejected because they haven't studied the Chevening literature first. So there is a 2-year work experience that is a mandate with Chevening. But if, say, fresh law school students want to apply, your internships can be used as work experience, but then you have to do a work hour math around it. That how does the internships taken up during the law school days can add up to 2 years of work experience. Similarly, there are other important eligibility criteria and regulations that Chevening very clearly states in its literature, which is available on their website. Every person applying for it has to reread these regulations so that they are not ineligible or their application is not rejected just because it did not qualify under their rules and regulations. Now coming to the third process, which is the interview. So if you are able to make it from the Chevening application process to the interview process, you should know your application like the back of your hand. And one thing that I would really like to focus is that please do not lie on your Chevening application, and also do not commit plagiarism. I'm sure most of the law students know that how heavy plagiarisms can count even in their research articles, but make sure that it is not committed at all in the Chevening essays. And at the interview process is just like any other interview process. It is totally based on the applications, and what the interview panel is looking at is at leadership rather than just looking at rote learning. And if everything falls into place and one is selected as a Chevening scholar, then the ride is beautiful from henceforth. I mean, I just had my pre-departure about 2-3 days back, and it was wonderful to meet the 39 people, or 39 of us who are selected from India. And I would just like to mention it to your audience also that the majority of the Chevening scholars for 2020-2021 that are going to the UK as representatives of India are lawyers. So it's brilliant that we have a lawyers fest in UK. But if anybody is interested, please go forward. But as I mentioned, please do your due research. Do not waste this opportunity.
Now let's start with the rapid fire segment. For the audience, in this, I am going to ask you, the ma'am for few words, and she will answer whatever first come in her mind. So, the first thing is gender laws in India.
So gender laws in India are actually are progressive. I mean, we are moving towards a country, a democracy where we are recognizing the non-binary nature of gender, specifically after September 6, 2018 and decriminalization of Section 377. But I also believe that somewhere the law is not in tandem with how so the society is reforming. I think the society is reforming a little faster than how laws are restructuring. So there is where the gap lies. But I think still we are much better than other democracies, no comparison whatsoever. But I believe in the last 10 decades we have made a steadfast growth. And I am not one of those people who diss the government and specifically diss the three pillars of the democracy for no rhyme or reason. I believe that we are a very difficult terrain coming from the fact that we are very diverse and we come with the amalgamation of a lot of culture, ideologies, and religion. And every kind of reformation requires time and patience. It just doesn't happen with the snap of a finger. So I believe that gender laws are progressive. But yes, there's a lapse on how the society is changing and how laws are changing.
Next is Shabrimala judgment.
So I don't know if I should share my views right now because there's a review. The review petition is still before the Supreme Court. But as far as the 2008 judgment was concerned, extremely progressive. Specifically, the judgment which talks about how menstruation cannot be taken as a taboo, and our so-called warded women under the age gap of 10 to 50 are legally have their right to enter into any kind of establishment, be it be religion also. Though I am not in support of the review petition that was submitted by the majority at in the Supreme Court judgment, because I personally think that it is unrequired for and there is no scope for a review petition. But I will keep my comments reserved because keeping the sanctity of the apex court in place, and because the review petition is still before the court.
Triple talaq judgment.
I think I would. I don't have words to really put into place that how progressive that legislation is. Simply for the matter of fact that be it be the Hindu marriage law or the Muslim personal law, both the partners. So we will only talk about the heterosexual couples because both the personal laws talk about heterosexual couples. Both a man and a woman enter a matrimony with equal rights. It is an entry of equals. And with triple talaq, specifically instant triple talaq, which was challenged at the Supreme Court and eventually banned, was a support to our Muslim women that they cannot be treated as a property on the behest of men in the matrimony. And this judgment was, I'm sure, not just celebrated by Muslim women, but women at large in the democracy. So extremely progressive legislation and a support to the Muslim women where they were being discriminated or they were being used as property of their husbands.
So, ma'am, we are end with the rapid fire segment. Last question. What are your views about legal education being imparted in India?
So, when we talk about first the legal education, it is very important to understand the society that we come from. It is important to understand that there is a massive difference between the haves and the have-nots in the country. Law and society, and similarly, legal education and society run parallelly with each other. We cannot compare ourselves with, say, New York. And similarly, we can't even compare ourselves with Nepal. We are a democracy on its own, and everything, be it be any kind of regulation or any kind of change, in India takes its own sweet time, and that is okay because there are a lot of other factors that have to be taken into consideration. So if we talk about the present legal education in India, and specifically because I graduated law school in 2011, so what I look at legal education now is a massive difference. So in a decade, we have really reformed ourselves because now it is not so much about rote learning and more about the practical experience where law students are given an opportunity to even dissent, to argue, to challenge, and to ask. And that I don't think was an opportunity back in law school because when I was in law school, because that was a time which was more about CGPA. But today we have really changed. I mean, I was speaking to somebody the other day and they were telling me that there is a diversity and inclusion practice that is being initiated in NUJS, and which is fantastic. So, but where do our lacunas lie is first that the kind of electives that are available, specifically in the fourth year and the fifth year, are very stereotyped. Like there are not, say, a lot of electives available, say, in psychology or the new nature of law, say sports law. These are not the electives that are available to the law students, and these are very upcoming fields of law. The second is the legal education doesn't take into consideration diversity. So why do you think women do not enter the legal profession, or gender non-binary scholars do not enter the legal profession? It's because आपके professors होते ही नहीं other than male. The maximum professors are male professors, and therefore legal education should make a very conscious move towards improving the diversity in the education. The third is to understand the marking system. Though MCQs are of a lot of importance, but case study based marking system has to be initiated at every law school and not just the national law universities, because law was never about rote learning. I was first told by my first boss that he said that a lawyer is not really obligated to know the law. A lawyer should know where the law is and where to read the law. You can't, it's not humanly possible to know all the law prevalent in the country. So you must have that critical thinking of a lawyer rather than knowing and learning law from the back, from cover to cover of a book. And the fourth is to make sure that there is scope of dissent, which I believe is right now being practiced in certain law schools, that students can start asking the right questions and start deliberating on the prevalent statutes and legislations in the country. So I think these 4 or 5 areas are good areas to work on. But we have really advanced as far as the education is concerned, from at least from the last 1 decade that I can see.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time for us and interacting with us. It was really a good conversation, and I hope best for your future ahead. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I wish you and your entire audience all the best, and all the best for the future course of action. Thank you so much for having me.